Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very, very exciting episode of Talkin' Games with Kellie and Andrew. I'm Andrew,
And I'm Kellie.
and it was E3.
It sure was.
At the time of this recording, we have just finished the Nintendo conference, so we have watched all of the major conferences, and we have so much to cover. So why don't we just hop right in? We're going to have a nice two-parter probably here. It's going to be a lot to talk about, so expect this to come out not once, but twice.
Double the fun.
Double the fun.
Double the us. Double the fun.
I don't even know why you wouldn't listen. This is already top quality content. Do you want to hop right into it, Kellie?
Yes, I do. So before we get into like the heavy conferences, there were just a few things here and there. The first thing that we want to talk about is the game Doki Doki Literature Club. This is Doki Doki Literature Club Plus, is coming June 30th to the Switch and PlayStation, so both consoles. It was originally a PC game. So it's going to include new content. It's like a special edition of the game, and it's getting a special physical edition.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting. I don't want to say too much because Doki Doki Literature Club is a very interesting game.
Yeah.
And there's
just discussing it is like spoiler territory in a lot of ways.
Right. But some of the story beats felt pretty exclusive to like PC gamers. PC games.
I will say that this version of the game adds a fake desktop as though you are playing on a computer when you start the game. So without spoiling, I'm sure that does answer any questions you might have about how they will do some parts.
I see. Okay. That's what I was most curious about because I had seen the game when it first came out, way back in the day, like 2018, I think. Well, not when it first came out, but maybe when it first became popular.
Yeah.
And I thought I would never think that it would come to consoles, so we'll kind of see how that goes and what the new content is.
Yeah, I'm also excited. It's getting a physical edition, which is so the digital edition is $15, which is, a steal for a game like this. And then the digital or physical edition is $30, which comes with some little standees of the main characters and a couple other little bonus things. For $30, I think that's really worth it. I actually did order it on PlayStation 5 already. I'll never put it in my console because I'm scared what it might do to it, but I will have it on my shelf, so that's something. Speaking of PlayStation, there was some news from the creators of Godfall, which is a little-known game, not because it's independent, but because it was bad. We don't cut any corners here. We are very blunt, but it was a PlayStation 5 exclusive multiplayer combat looter shooter game with lots of microtransactions, but it's still full priced. There's a lot to talk about with this game, but they announced that it is now coming to PS4, which is super disingenuous in my opinion, because that game's whole thing was, this is a big deal because this game can only work on PS5. That is why it is exclusive to the PlayStation 5. Buy our game. Please buy our game. And now they're like, thank you for buying our game. We lied. It's coming to last gen. So, oh well. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I don't get it. I did not think that gaming companies that were like only doing next gen launches would ever go back, but I guess we're in interesting times right now, so.
It's a little concerning, but hopefully if a game says it's only next gen, this is one of the only ones that rolls back on that and releases later on last gen. Super peculiar.
It is very peculiar. But you know what else is peculiar?
Zombies. Werewolves.
What? Well?
Vampires.
Well, no.
Tall women.
I mean, yes, those are peculiar. Well, if you go to a WNBA game, it probably wouldn't be that peculiar to be seeing tall women. But I will say, what is peculiar is that Resident Evil Village DLC was confirmed, but we don't know anything yet other than that. Yet. That's peculiar. I would like to know. I would like to see it. Because you know these companies make DLC that's meant to come out like day one. And I have not seen it, so.
I just thought it was funny that Capcom had a conference, which we're not going to talk about because that is the only news from it. And again, that being the only news, it was announced in a text blurb. And I'm like, y'all, just, we know there's DLC. Of course there's DLC. So it was a bad conference, but
it was not great.
Hey, at least it's confirmed. Feel like they could have just sent an email out.
A press release.
Well, it costs a lot of money to host an E3 conference. You have to pay the ESA like a boatload of money. And they just said nothing. They said nothing. They were like, hey, you know that Monster Hunter game that's already out and the one that's coming out in a week? Here's the tiny bit of footage. And that was it.
Yeah.
And then they were like, you know what esports is? And everybody's like, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, we paid these guys to talk about it for 5 minutes, so we're still going to play the segment.
They were like, are you sure you know what it is? Because we can tell you.
What if we tried to show you anyway? And then the last little miscellaneous news we got before we get into the big conferences is that during a smaller showcase, we were shown Rune Factory 5 for Switch, which we've known about for a while, but it's only been out in Japan, and it's finally getting its English version with a new trailer, and it's coming early 2022. This is by the Harvest Moon people. This is what they do now these days. So it's like a melding of like dungeon crawly kind of stuff and Harvest Moon mechanics. It's very, very esteemed. People really loved the fourth one. So I think it's fair to say that this will be well received.
Yeah, I like Rune Factory. I think it's fun. But, I'm a Harvest Moon fan. I'm a Stardew fan. So I like farming simulators. And I like farming simulators that have a little bit of spice in them, And Rune Factory has got a little bit of spice. So
yeah, maybe like a 3-headed dog dragon. Maybe some swords.
Maybe
a goblin.
Maybe a goblin or two.
I'm not watching the trailer right now and just listing what I'm looking at. That'd be ridiculous.
Right.
Kellie.
Andrew.
This E3, I expected very little. COVID's still happening. I figured developers were really far behind. And although we talked about a lot of fun hopes last week, I think we were both going in with very tempered expectations. Would you agree?
I would, yes.
Which,
I would agree.
Oh boy, made it a much more interesting conference. I think we should hop right in with Xbox. That's probably going to be the remainder of this first part because, holy macaroni, was that a lot of news.
Holy cannoli.
Holy cannoli. And before we begin on this, just as a disclaimer, because we're not going to say it at the end of every single game, all of the new games that they announced are coming to Game Pass on release day. I think this was the best Game Pass commercial I've ever seen. And
it's a lot of value.
Yeah, especially right now. We're not sponsored by Microsoft, but right now, you can go get 3 months of Game Pass for PC and Xbox for $1.
I'm not sponsored by Microsoft, but I did get the Pfizer vaccine, so Microsoft products are very appealing to me.
Yes. Kellie has a stack of Xboxes in her house.
Thank you for the Xbox.
How about we hop right into it, Kellie? Get into the heavy hitting news.
Yes, let's hop into it. So, like right at the jump at the beginning of the conference, they announced, they're like, "Oh, we're working on Starfield, surprise!" And we kind of all knew that, and I think we were expecting this. But there was an in-engine cinematic teaser. It's a new engine.
That was the biggest news for me.
Right, very surprising from them. But the game is going to be out November 11th, which was the same release date as Skyrim, which is the first thing I thought about, except Skyrim was 11/11/11. This is
Oh,
11/11/22. So not quite as fun, but
it's kind of fun.
it's still like 1 plus 1 and
Plus
1 plus 1 is 22. You know what
four.
I
1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 equals 22.
Right. Or I could have just said 11 plus 11. But anyway, it'll be out on Series X and PC. I was feeling, I feel a little bit, I don't know. I also read an article after the fact where Todd Howard was like, and I don't trust anything that man says, but he was like, oh, it's going to have some really intense RPG elements, choosing your background and stuff like that. And you know what? I've been burned before. Okay. I played Cyberpunk on release. I was promised really intense RPG elements. I did not receive that. So we'll see. Like I said, I don't trust anything that comes out of Todd Howard's mouth.
No.
He's done me dirty so many times. It's like almost funny at this point. But I don't know. What did you think of this little teaser, Andrew?
I was disappointed that Todd Howard introduced it only because my biggest hope with this conference was no Todd Howard. That's only a little bit a joke. In all seriousness, I was glad he spoke very briefly and not the whole conference. He only had one tiny stand-up. But the game looks... So I have to put an asterisk on this, but it looks good. But it's also... Yes, it's an engine, but that's not saying much, So I don't know. I'm gonna go in it with cautious optimism because I really, really want a really cool open world space RPG. Bethesda's Softworks has been a little hit or miss, and by that I mean miss the past few years. So I'm going into it aware that it might be very similar quality to what we've gotten recently, but at the same time, new engine, Microsoft money, a reasonable release date because there's still a whole year and a half before it comes out. It could be great. Could be.
Could be.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I have high hopes. Do you have high hopes at least, or
I
you
have,
just...
No, I have tempered expectations. I have a really hard time because I love RPGs. It's my favorite genre of games. So I have a really hard time trusting, especially like you said, these past few years have been kind of miss for Bethesda.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 to me was fun. It wasn't really an RPG. I mean, you could make your own character and you could customize them to an extent, but it's pretty, I don't know. So I have a hard time being faithful when a game says that it's an RPG, that it's actually going to be an RPG. And I was burned by Cyberpunk too. But
Yeah.
I still had fun with those games, you know what I mean? But it's hard to be trusting.
Yeah. So next thing they announced was Stalker 2. I have very little familiarity with the Stalker series. It has been over a decade since there's been a new entry. The last one was in 2009. But the same studio that made the originals is coming back. It's like a post-apocalypse kind of fantasy, Chernobyl-based game. First-person shooter. It looks really tense and interesting, and the plot looks really, somber and unpleasant. I think if it comes out good, I'm very interested. The fact that it's on Game Pass makes it very easy to be interested, because I could just give it a try without too many stakes involved, but I do like how committed they are to the Russian theming and stuff, and they're not just, changing everything to be Americanized. It looks very somber. That's the word I would use for it more than anything.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought the environments looked really, really nice.
Yeah, it's very realistic and
Mhm.
and grubby.
Yeah, grubby is a good word for it.
Real grubby.
Yeah. But, we'll see. I don't have an Xbox. I will have a PC by then.
So
So
you'll basically have an Xbox soon.
so maybe, but we'll see. You're right. We'll see how it releases. Another grubby. No, I'm just kidding.
What a rude way to introduce any game.
Another game that was announced is called Contraband. It's a big open world co-op game by the same people that made Just Cause, and it is going to be on the Series X and PC. And I don't remember this. I might have tuned out during the presentation. I just don't remember this.
It was a cinematic trailer. There was very little content. It was more so just them, like the fact that it was co-op and open world was like on post-its in the cinematic, so it's not like they showed it off.
Right.
I think what surprised me more is just that it's Series X. Like we had huge talks last week about next gen exclusivity and how a lot of games are skimping and sticking to last gen, for the sake of fear of losing sales. But like already in this conference, they showed Starfield, Stalker 2, and now Contraband, which didn't have gameplay, but still. And all three of those games are only coming to next gen and PC. But that's a really, that's a strong move to be making. Like Microsoft's clearly putting their stock in Series X, which I really hope PlayStation's follow suit.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of these games, not a whole lot of them had 2021 release dates. So
Yeah.
I thought that was very telling too. They're kind of expecting to, I don't want to say phase out, but they're kind of expecting to really dig their heels in with the Series X starting next year, which is good, I think.
It feels almost like this year's kind of like a breather year. And based on this conference, it really looks like Microsoft's going to throw everything they got at us starting next year.
Mm-hmm.
But things that they're throwing out this year, maybe we could talk a little bit about. Maybe bump bump ba-da-dum bump ba-da-dum bump ba-da-dum.
You're gonna get us copywritten. We're gonna get struck down by the lords at Disney.
By Mr. Depp himself.
By Mr. Depp and Mr. Hans Zimmer. They're gonna say you're not allowed to perform our music.
Yeah. So what we're speaking about, because this is the most ridiculous segment, if you don't know, Jack Sparrow, as well as some other Pirates of the Caribbean content, is coming to Xbox's Sea of Thieves in an expansion called A Pirate's Life. It's out for free 1 week from the day of this recording, June 15th. So that's June 22nd. I have no experience with Sea of Thieves. I've heard it's very No Man's Sky-esque in that it kind of came out a little underwhelming. And then they provided a lot of support post-launch. And now fans of the game are very much in love with it. So getting new content seems kind of like a given. I am, and I don't like to admit this, a Pirates of the Caribbean fan. So I will say that the trailer made me a little giddy. I'm not going to go grab Sea of Thieves because I don't really have time for that right now. But the fact that Jack Sparrow and Davy Jones with his, tentacly face, the fact that those are both in it, I'm quite interested in seeing it at the very least, even if I don't go out of my way to play it.
I know. I was very excited because I heard the voiceover and I was like, this sounds like the woman from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
She's like a witch, I think. She's sea witch.
Crabs. She's a bunch of crabs, I think.
Yeah, you're right. She is. And sorry, just confirming that you have Pirates of the Caribbean knowledge.
It's just too funny not to remember that she's a bunch of crabs.
Right. And I was like, that sounds like the lady. And then I was like, it'd be crazy if they did like a Pirates of the Caribbean thing. And then I saw Jack Sparrow. And I was like, oh, wow. That must have, they saw the opportunity. And I was like, it would be really cool if they included Davy Jones because he's like the best part with his tentacle face. And there he was. He popped up not a second later. So very exciting. I probably won't, I don't really play Sea of Thieves, but you're right. It is something to be like, something to look out for.
Yeah, good on them for supporting the game so handily. I'm assuming the fans of the game are excited to see something so recognizable in their expansion.
Yeah, like a big Disney property too. That's pretty cool.
And whoever was imitating Johnny Depp in that trailer did a pretty darn good job. It sounded very similar.
I agree. There are a lot of really good Johnny Depp, or I should say Jack Sparrow impersonators out there.
Yeah, so. I'm assuming it's probably the same guy who did it in Kingdom Hearts 3. Because I'm assuming there's probably like Disney's video game Jack Sparrow where like they're like, we're we're not going to pay Johnny Depp $14 billion to record 7 lines for this game.
Right. So another very exciting multiplayer game that they didn't announce, but they showed was Battlefield 2042.
Otherwise
Not
known as
2022.
otherwise known as 2024, according to Talkin' Games with Kellie and Andrew.
Right. And it was like an in-game alpha footage, and they had 128 people in there.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And I'm not like a big Battlefield person. You know, I wasn't like, woo, Battlefield. I'm so excited, especially after that dumb stuff. How they were like, it's not political. It's not political. But it looked really good. And it's coming out October 22nd, which
Yes, pretty soon.
That is really soon. So I don't know. I thought it looked really cool. I loved the part when they were in the elevator and it was like all quiet and the elevator music was on and they were like changing the attachment to their weapons. And it was just really cool because it was like, you know, it was people. It was just people playing the game. So
yeah, I mean, I'm assuming even though it says pre-alpha that this is basically what it will look like come launch. I think it looks really tremendous. I think there's an argument to be had about the pricing of the game because it's full price, meaning 60 on last gen and 70 on next gen, and it's just multiplayer and
Oof.
no battle royale. So it's just the classic, whatever you want to call it, deathmatch. There's probably other modes, but there's no battle royale and there's no campaign. And I'm thinking it's very, very safe to assume they'll have like a monthly or season battle pass where they'll charge people like $10 or $15 per battle pass. So I disagree with the monetization of the game, which is a shame because if the game was free with like in-game viable content, they'd probably still make bank, and I would definitely play it that way. But I don't know.
Yeah.
There's squirrel suits. You can fly around a big tornado in a squirrel suit.
I also thought that there's not that many maps, which I hope means that the maps are like, obviously they look this way, but I hope that means the maps are very, very dynamic.
Yeah, and I mean, they look like the one is just a full city.
Right.
And it looks like a small open world, honestly. So,
Right.
I don't know. This could be a really special game as far as multiplayer games go. I think
It's beautiful.
people...
It was really nice to look at. I don't know what else.
Yeah, usually I'm so used to when like these multiplayer games like this pop up that I'm used to being like, all right, water grabbing time or time to go take a quick bathroom break. But with this, I was honestly like very engaged. It was beautiful and looked like very action packed, but not in like a Michael Bay cheap way, in like a legitimate fun to play in and watch way. So I don't know. I'll probably grab this one down the line when it is not $70 because that's an obscene price when there's so many fun free multiplayer games. So I'll wait it out and see when it hits a lower price. I will definitely check this one out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out pretty soon, so
yeah,
that's a theme for today. Xbox might not have been the most prompt, a lot of 2022 stuff, but the rest of the show, wow. So next, they showed a little bit of a game called Yakuza Like a Dragon. This is the 7th or 8th, depending on your definitions, entry in the Yakuza franchise. Earlier this year and some of last year, they added Yakuza 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, all to Game Pass. And then in November, Yakuza Like a Dragon came out. It was pseudo Xbox exclusive, and by that I mean it came out on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, but the next gen version was only on Series X. You could not get a PS5 version until a couple months ago. So it was very clear that Sega and Microsoft were buddy-buddy on the Yakuza series, so it's very cool to see that this new entry is joining Game Pass so soon after launch, too. It was only 7 months ago, so this game is very recent, and that means that now you can play through the entire Yakuza series all on Game Pass. Wow.
Yeah.
Money's worth.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a theme with this whole conference is Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass.
Game Pass, Game Pass, Game Pass. I'm very, very happy I have an Xbox now. The show was
I,
good, but it was very much held up by the fact that I have Game Pass.
right. So, another little trailer that we saw briefly, and we've seen it before. It's not
I feel like
like
we've seen this too many times, honestly.
it was. It was definitely revealed last year, I think.
Yeah, and we keep seeing
Um,
like tiny non-trailers. This feels like the first time we've legitimately seen this game.
right. And I don't know if we knew who was going to be in it.
I don't think so.
But the game 12 Minutes, which is a little like single room looping narrative, it kind of looks like an indie game. I don't really think it's considered one, but it looks like it would be one because it looks a little bit like cerebral and a little bit
It's Annapurna who makes indie games, but they fund the developers. So they're indie games, but they still have a decent budget.
right, quote, indie, unquote
Yes.
games. But the game stars James McAvoy, I'm assuming, as the main character, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe, who I feel like Willem Dafoe is just, he's really in a point in his career where he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. F it, I'll do it. Yeah. Anyway, it's coming out on August 19th of this year, which is, like barely 2 months, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
it's a little
crazy.
more than 2 months.
That's
But
two. I'd say that's
2
close
months
enough.
and some change, yeah. And it's coming out on Xbox One, which I mean, I don't think this game is going to be very
Technically demanding.
technically demanding. So Xbox One, Series X, and it's also coming out on PC. So the trailer looks interesting, but you're right. I feel like we have seen it a billion times.
I believe this is the first time we've gotten a release date. I believe this game's been delayed a handful of times due to some iffy management. So the fact that they're finally like, all right, it's out very soon means that, it's exciting. It's on Game Pass, so I will definitely be checking it out. And I really like the cast.
It only takes 12 minutes to beat. So
yeah, 12 minutes once and you're done. Yeah, I like that. It's also like a top-down game, which is really interesting. It's an interesting way to approach, a narrative game like this is like a top-down cinematic style. Something that hasn't really been done, so.
Right.
Speaking of things that haven't been done, perhaps in 19 years, Psychonauts 2 was shown off, sequel to the 19-year-old game Psychonauts. We've seen this game a few times. We got a really nice looking new trailer. It looks really cool, very polished, and they finally announced a release date, and it follows the theme of extremely soon because it is out August 25th, which is, again, 2 months away, basically. I'm excited for this one. It looks even better than it has in the past trailers, so they're definitely putting a lot of polish on this thing.
Yeah. I know. It looked very cute. I feel like, I don't know if cute's the right word. It looked fun.
It's stylish, for sure.
Right. It's quirky.
and I know I said I wouldn't repeat this for every game, but it's on Game Pass. So, like, it's just one of these things. Like, every single one of these games I end up feeling excited for because I don't have to pay $60 just to try it,
Do you feel like they're going to up the price of Game Pass?
I don't know, because like the subscription numbers just keep going up substantially, so they're clearly not like they're making money,
Right. It just feels like there's so much that's like Game Pass day one. See you there.
I mean, I'm curious because like it's all this stuff is like temporary technically. Like they buy like year-long licenses generally. And because a lot of if it's an Xbox Studios game, which Psychonauts 2 is, this will be on Xbox or Game Pass forever, probably. But like all those other games, they're paying for a year of it, which like, I mean, they bought Bethesda earlier this year. Like they have the money, and if it brings in new subscribers, it'll pay for itself pretty quickly, and it gets people buying Xboxes, which honestly is probably what they want more than anything.
Yeah. And they also were like, we're just going to throw 10 more Bethesda games up on Game Pass for you, which are, I can't see that one. I've never heard of this one.
Can we hang on one moment as we go whoop and make this slightly easier to read? We have a nice graphic that Nintendo, I can't even speak.
Arx Fatalis, is that what it's called?
Oh, that's where we're confused. Yeah, I'm going to be
What
honest.
did you think I was confused about?
I don't know. All these other games have very recognizable logos, and I was like, wow, Kellie just not knowing. She can't even read. And then I'm like,
No,
wait, no, she can read. This is just a really tiny, tiny text.
it is very small.
I've never heard of this, which is funny because it's next to a thing that says iconic Bethesda games, and I've never heard of it.
Right. It must be a little bit older.
Yeah.
So that one, it's got Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, which I think is like an expansion. I don't think it's quite a DLC. I think it's kind of a
I think it's like a Uncharted Lost
hefty.
Legacy kind of thing where they use the
Yeah.
engine from 2 to make a new, smaller game.
Yeah. And then it's got Doom, The Evil Within 2, which is a very, I think it's a very fun horror game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that one.
Rage, Classic, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. I've never played that one.
I liked
Fallout.
it, so.
Fallout. I can't tell which one that is. I think it's Brother. Well,
No, it's Fallout.
maybe...
Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, the old classic PC games.
Yes, 1, 2, and Tactics, which are all they're like the isometric, like, they're not like Fallout 3 and New Vegas and 4. They're old.
No,
and then Fallout 3
RPGs.
is coming to Game Pass, which Fallout 3 is a great game. So
I'm looking forward to it because I would love to, I've been wanting to replay Fallout 3, probably not even entirely, just like try it out again. But I really don't want to try to get my PS3 up and running for it. So being able to play it on Xbox One X will be way nicer.
And you know what's sad about Fallout 3 as well is that it's not really optimized for PS3 anymore. It's really bad on PC, like on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
And even Xbox, I have my old Xbox 360 and I'll play Fallout 3 on there because it's just so bad on PC. There's like a patch not a patch, it's like a mod that you can download to make the game run better. And it's like the most popular mod, so that's how bad it runs on Windows 10. But
speaking of Bethesda doing kind of crappy things, they went ahead and gave us a nice reminder during this conference. One, reminding us of how quickly time is fleeting and how old we are getting. And also, two, at how long it's been between entries in this franchise. Bethesda reminded us that Skyrim is now 10 years old as of November 11th. Also, somebody said to me the other day, it has been as much time between Skyrim and now as it was between Elder Scrolls 3 and Skyrim. So in that time, we got 3 separate Elder Scrolls, and now we have 1.
Yeah.
I don't like to complain about long development cycles usually because, games take as long as they take. But, like, the amount of times that Bethesda's like, hey, Skyrim? Have you heard of it? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of Skyrim, one of the most prolific games of the past decade that you've sold in 23 different formats. What is that?
Yeah, that was kind of like, I don't know. I was kind of like, what was the point? Like, I understand we want to be like, oh, that's our game. It's been out for 10 years. But it's also like, yeah, it's been out for 10 years.
Why are you talking about? It was like a decent, I mean, it wasn't a long segment, but anything more than 30 seconds, it's like, it's a segment.
Right.
So,
right. And, speaking of things that are drawn out for way too long to be, there was a Fallout 76 trailer for some new story content for the Brotherhood of Steel, the least exciting faction in any Fallout game. It's coming out July 7th, which was, that's nice for the 10 people that are playing. I'm just kidding.
The 76 people.
People play Fallout 76. I'm being a hater, but it's out July 7th, which is nice because that's kind of soon. And then they teased it right after this trailer, and everybody was like, oh my god, is something getting remastered? Like, everybody's hearts were kind of still.
That's really what it felt like.
But it was just another Fallout 76 story content trailer for the Pit, which is funny because we've already been to the Pit in Fallout lore. It's a whole DLC in Fallout 3. And you know what? It's not really a fun DLC. The story is interesting, but it's not easy.
It's like broken. It was so difficult for me to play that back on the PS3.
I know. So
I was
I'm like,
falling through the floor constantly. I don't want to go back. The floors aren't
right,
solid.
right, right. So, we'll see how that goes. I think it'd be cool to see it sort of reimagined in the 76/4 engine, but not enough to like actually play Fallout 76. I'm sorry.
I'm with you on that.
Sorry.
Last bit of Bethesda news for the show. Elder Scrolls Online is getting optimized for Series X. This is nothing surprising, but still pleasant. Elder Scrolls Online is definitely one of the best Bethesda communities that exist. And I know they're not the core developers, but it's a Bethesda property and it has a very happy community. It's ironic that it came right after 76, which is a very starved community. So good on them for optimizing it, I guess. I'm going to be honest, I just assumed it already was, so it was a little strange, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, I think told most Elder Scrolls Online players play on PC.
Yeah.
So maybe they were just a little slow to optimization, but
perhaps, yeah.
Yes, but something that was not Bethesda related. I don't know why I said it like Bethesda.
You're so excited about it too.
I know. I'm just glad to be moving on from that. No offense to Bethesda.
A little offense. They deserve the offense.
Kind of hate you guys. The combat game Party Animals is coming to Xbox in 2022.
Yes. Yes.
What was the game? Was it always? It's like a sequel, right? Because Party Animals was like another game from earlier, wasn't it?
It came out last year as an early access game around the time of Fall Guys. Kind of rode off that, but it's actually coming out fully next year.
Oh, okay.
It looks I remember... so fluffy.
Yeah, it looks very cute and fun. And it would be a fun game to play with friends, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games I'll get over very quickly, but again, this is where the Game Pass stuff comes in. It'll be fine, with Game Pass I play a game as long as I want, and if I want to quit it soon, that's fine.
Right.
But just like, oh my goodness, it's just, if you've not seen this game, I don't even care to describe it. I just want you to go watch it. It is just physics-based comedy, a lot of ragdolly animals that are fluffy or scaly, and they're just bopping their heads into each other. It's great stuff. Please go watch the trailer.
It's very cute.
Some other news that came was that Hades, the very, very critically acclaimed game, is coming to Xbox. And then it was announced, but not in this show, that it's also coming to PlayStation. That's coming out August 13th. It's also getting a physical release, which is very nice. It's also coming to Game Pass, which actually surprised me. This is a huge, huge independent game, so I didn't expect it to come to Game Pass if it's also coming to PlayStation. But I think this is a huge win for everybody who has Xboxes and PlayStations who hasn't been able to play this game yet.
Yes, very exciting. I still have to play it.
It's remarkable. Highly
I know. I've had it on my Switch for like 5 months now, and I haven't played it, so I'm sorry. I'll get there.
Are you sorry to me or to Supergiant?
To everyone. And I'm sorry that I have played Mass Effect like almost 2 times now before having played Hades.
Hey, it's what you have to do. It's your brand.
Right. So the big news, so they talked about Halo Infinite. They sure did. They showed a little trailer, like a little teaser for the campaign. Not really sure. I don't know. And then they showed a big long trailer for the multiplayer, which looked a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
There were a lot of like graphical upgrades from the last time we had seen it, which was good. But they showed gameplay from multiplayer. They did not show gameplay from the campaign.
Yeah.
They were also very vague. They were like, yeah, it's launching this holiday. So a little alarming.
November is soon.
It's feeling like they don't really want to show off the campaign for whatever reason, and that they're really, and the way that they're releasing it separately from multiplayer.
And that the multiplayer is free, which I don't know if we said that, but the fact that it's free really feels like they're, I don't know, not an apology, but it's a little, it's weird.
It's a little concerning, especially the very vague launching this holiday. So, we'll see what happens. I feel like a lot of Halo fans are just sort of like, they're over this. I mean, the story's done. It's been done. So,
I mean, there's a new Cortana looking lady.
Right. So why are we returning to all the same characters and even the same plot lines? I feel like there was a whole plot line in maybe 3, maybe 4, where you have to save Cortana. So what's going on?
I guess we'll know by this holiday, according to them.
Which holiday? Maybe they meant Easter, next year.
Next Easter.
Maybe they meant Valentine's Day. I don't know.
Even that's not that far. I feel like they're probably talking about 4th of July 2022.
Right. We'll see how that goes for them.
Moving on, we have some much more exciting news, in my opinion, I guess. A game called Somerville, Somerville, was shown off. It is a side-scrolling. Well, it looks like it has some 3D motion, but it's a very linear, story-based game, very stylized graphics, some weird sci-fi elements, definitely narrative-heavy. It is by some prior Playdead devs who made Inside and Limbo. I am thrilled for this one. It's not out for a long while. It comes out in 2022, so we don't actually know when that is. Hopefully not late 22, but hey, what are you gonna do? I just really like how this game looks. I'm very excited. I trust Playdead a lot, and I know they're not the developers, but a lot of their creative leads moved to this game, and the creativity is what makes those games special. I'm very, very excited for this one. I recommend going check out the trailer. Go and check out the trailer if it sounds at all interesting to you.
Yeah, I thought it looked good. I don't have any. You're more excited. I mean, you said more than I could. It did look good. And then another trailer we got was for Plague Tale Requiem, which is the sequel to Plague Tale Innocence, Lost Innocence.
I think just Innocence. I think you're
Innocence, which is, I feel like not a lot of people played that game. I was kind of surprised there was a sequel, but it looked very nice. I think it was just a cinematic. I don't think there was any.
I think that was.
Or anything
I think that was in in-engine.
It definitely was.
It's a very graphic. That game is very graphically demanding, so it wouldn't surprise me if the next game does look as good as that trailer.
Yeah, it looked good. So I might have to go back and play the first one and get the story. I gather that it's
not
about
fun.
The plague, because it's called Plague Tale and there's a lot of rats. We'll see.
Speaking of sequels, we also got announced Slime Rancher 2. This is a big old indie game. It's about ranching slime, if you didn't pick up on it. Kellie's mouth is so widely open.
I love Slime Rancher. They're so cute.
I was surprised that they had a sequel announced in the show. I was very pleasantly surprised. It's coming next year, 2022. Something to look forward to.
Yes. Another thing to look forward to. I already said my piece about Slime Rancher. They're very cute. So another thing to look forward to is a snowboarding game called Shredders. Not SSX Tricky, but it'll have to do. And they said, we hope to see you in December of this year. So I thought that was kind of fun, a funny way of announcing your release date.
Yeah.
Because, I would also hope to see you in December. But well, who knows if that's going to happen, The game looked beautiful. And I think it was I don't know if I misconstrued the trailer, but I think it was actual snowboarders in the game, commentating on it.
Oh, okay. Their voice acting.
Yeah, but
okay.
Maybe I misread the trailer.
Perhaps. It looked really stunning. I'm very excited for snowboarding or for SSX fans, really, because this seems like a successor to that in some ways.
Yeah.
There was another game announced shortly after that called Atomic Heart. This game is a very surreal first-person shooter. I went in with no expectations. This is some random new game. It's very, very graphically nice. I was very shocked at how good it looked. It is really, really freaking trippy. The trailer shocked me a lot of times. It just went directions I was not expecting. This really seems... I like the idea of making games like this that are kind of not horror, but so peculiar that they're a little freaky just to watch, So I'm very excited for this game. There's no release date, not even a year, sadly. So I'm hoping this is not one of those weird indie projects that takes 3 or 4 years. But I guess we'll see. It's coming to Xbox One and Series X. So at least
I feel like
won't have to buy a new console for it.
right, and I feel like if it's coming out for Xbox One, it'll probably be out within the next year.
I would expect if they're putting it on Xbox One, Microsoft probably wouldn't want it shown if it's not coming in the next year.
Mm-hmm. Another sort of spooky game that got shown was Replaced, which was it's like a pixel art game, but it's beautiful.
I was shocked. Yeah,
it was like I'm actually very excited for this one. I'm just rewatching the trailer now.
Yeah,
everything about it was so beautiful, and when I had seen it, it was on the stream, so it was like, 7, not even 7, but it's
240p.
Like, right. So like watching the 4K trailer now, I'm like, my eyeballs are like really enjoying this. But it's a beat 'em up game. It's coming out in 2022. So we'll see how that goes.
This was another one where as soon as it started, I was kind of like, oh, this looks kind of interesting, and then it really opened up halfway through the trailer, and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to play this game.
Yeah.
Speaking of pixel games, though, we have another 3D pixel art game. This is an RPG from the Suikoden team. I do not know how to properly pronounce this. Please forgive me. I'm going to guess it's Eiyuden. It's spelled Eiyuden. Eiyuden. Would that be your guess?
I would go with Eiyuden.
Eiyuden. It's probably Eiyuden because it's Suikoden.
Yeah.
Okay. Eiyuden. That seems right. So I didn't know a lot about this game, but it was kickstarted recently and was very successful. The game is called Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes. It was actually delayed in this trailer to 2023, but the trailer was, oh my god. I hadn't heard of this game before, and I was just blown away at how it looked. And then in this trailer, they also announced a spin-off, which I thought was very funny. So it's Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, and that's coming out 2022. It seems kind of like this is like a hold people off situation while this game is in development still. I was just blown away at the graphical style of this game. I was not expecting something like this in the Microsoft Showcase.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Octopath.
Yeah, maybe with like a bigger budget, it almost feels like.
Yeah, just sort of like a 2D and 3D blend. They also announced Age of Empires 4 out this October 28th. I'm not really a big fan of like RTS, like strategy games, unless they're... Nope, sorry, not a fan of any. I can't think of any that I really like. It looked pretty cool. I think the trailer used like real footage, and then they were like, surprise! The game itself, I don't know if it looked that great, but
it was fine. I don't like that they mixed in that stuff, because at first I was insanely impressed with the graphics, and then I was like, oh, your game doesn't look... I mean, it looks good, but it's like not going for realistic styles. I was just very confused at the very sudden change.
I also thought maybe they would do a little bit more. Like when I think of Age of Empires, I think of like games like Civilization, which like Civ, the newest version of it is graphically looks very nice, and there's more like widgets and things like that. Whereas Age of Empires, I feel like kind of looks kind of the same as it always has. So not trying to be a hater, but I feel like that's like my motto with these shows. Like, not trying to be a hater, but sometimes it's just like this really all you did? Like in all this time that you've been working on this game, it doesn't really change what you've done before, just sort of releasing another version of it. I don't know.
It feels
Just my
strange when
thoughts.
when a sequel that doesn't do much is shown off at E3, which is usually like, big showcase for exciting new content. But this is just kind of like, yeah, more of same.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of more of the same, but in a good way, depending who you ask, Among Us is now on Game Pass. I really like when my favorite thing about the show is when Kellie claps, forgetting that her microphone is very directional to her mouth. So it sounds like something is happening in the distance. I can't even hear the clap right next to the microphone. You will have to slam your hands together if you care to be heard.
I am clapping for Among Us. That's all I have to say. I miss the simplicity, I miss those early days where you would just get in a lobby, someone would insult you and call you stupid, and then you'd run around and not know what to do, and then you'd get killed, and then you'd have to watch as the person who killed you fooled everybody else in the lobby. Now it's just this big worldwide thing, and it's I miss the days when we could just maybe August of last year, when we could all just have a good time playing Among Us.
Can you say it one more time? I'm a big fan of the pronunciation you got going here.
Among Us.
You're really... I've never heard that G pronounced.
Among Us. Among Us. All right.
Uh-huh.
I'm done.
There was very little to talk about on this story, and we really milked that one, and I'm glad we did.
We did. You know who else milked the audience?
Ew. Why did you just tell me who, and I quote you directly, milked the audience?
We were made fools of.
That's not what that word means.
I know. I was just trying to make the transition work. They announced Obsidian announced Outer Worlds 2 with a very quirky trailer that was like, you wanted this in the game? Psych. You wanted this game? Psych. It was quite silly. But they were like, we don't really have anything. We don't even have a date. So we're just telling you that it's happening.
I think Obsidian's one of the very few developers where they can have a cinematic with no game content, and I'll be like, oh, it's okay. I trust that you'll pull this off.
Yeah. I enjoyed the first Outer Worlds game, so.
Yeah. And
I will
come into Game Pass, so
right.
Free of charge.
That's true.
Speaking of quirky, the next thing is so regular that there's no way to make this work. Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming out on Series X on July 27th, and they announced that in the fall expansion they're going to add fighter jets. So for those who don't know, because this does just sound like we're talking about an insanely niche thing, Flight Simulator is actually a pretty well-esteemed video game, based solely on the fact that they have pulled a lot of graphical tricks to make this game look insanely beautiful. I'm very happy it's only coming to Series X, because this game seems pointless on weak hardware. I love watching this game. I just like watching footage because it's real pretty, but there's not much to say. I'm excited for fans of the game who haven't been able to play it yet because they don't have a PC. So good on them. July 27th.
Yes. I've had a lot of dreams lately of being inside airplanes because I have a phobia of flying. So I have I should say nightmares. So I feel like maybe this game might help me a little bit because it's so beautiful. It might help me a little bit get over my fear.
Or it will trigger your fear and you'll be shaking the entire time you play.
Right. Or I'll want to go up to the cockpit and be like, you know what? I think I can do this. I'm really good at Flight Simulator, so why don't you just let me take over for you, buddy? You can go to the bathroom, have a drink. I'll be up here flying the plane.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Maybe not. But you
I,
know what? What I can do is drive a car.
yeah, good.
Coincidentally, there was a Forza Horizon trailer. Forza Horizon 5. I'm not super familiar with the Forza games, so I didn't even know there were like
Four
more
other
than
ones.
4. Yeah, I didn't know there were more than 2. Um, but it was a really beautiful trailer. It was like a whole showcase. It wasn't really a trailer. It was like a segment.
Yeah.
They decided to end the show. Well, not end it, but they decided to like cap off the show with like a 15-minute. Who wants to talk about Forza?
That was the weirdest thing to
Thing.
me. It was beautiful, just beautiful, but also the biggest positive of this show, in my opinion, was the fact that they were just like, that was me snapping. They were just flying through stuff, like hardly more than 3 minutes on anything. Even Halo was like a quick segment, and that was a
Yep.
huge thing. Like even Starfield, the biggest announcement of the show, arguably, was only like a 2 minute segment, and then Forza was like, okay, but we're gonna spend 15 minutes on this thing, and
Yeah,
I didn't super mind because of how beautiful it was, but also it just felt so out of place.
yeah. They also kind of did that thing where they're like, "Look, you can play with your friends in co-op mode," and it's like people who are scripted, like pretending to be like, "On your
Oh,
right."
yeah.
It's
Like
like,
very acted and yeah,
right,
that
like
that's
we
kind of
should.
a that's kind of not false advertising, but like it definitely I don't agree with that practice a ton because it makes games look like unrealistic and how easy it is to communicate.
It's also like we all know that it's fake. So let's just drop it.
Yeah.
Why don't I have someone yell at me because I'm not flanking? Okay? Like swearing at me and yelling at me.
Yeah, not
That's
one comment has been made about your mother yet, so.
right. So it's not very realistic. Unlike the game itself, which is beautiful.
Oh my god. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not big into racing games and I also don't have a Series X. Um Oh, this is another one that's coming exclusively to Series X. Guess I should say that. But they showed a couple shots that were just like they were sitting still with the camera and they were like, "This is not a photograph." And I was like, normally I'm like, "Ah, shut up." But with this I'm like, "Oh, that looks like a photograph. Like that looks like you went into nature and snap snap, took a picture, let's put it in the Microsoft conference." Nope. It's Forza.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely graphically one of the most realistic games I've seen in my life. So, hats off. Hats off to them.
Mhm.
Do drivers wear hats? Like professional
Yeah,
drivers? Okay.
they do, yeah. They wear helmets.
Helmets off to Forza.
Mine is off already.
Yes. I'll be taking mine off on November 9th when this game comes out. The last announcement of the show feels like we just started talking about the show. That's how fast paced and fun it was. But we alas used this whole first part as we predicted to talk about it. The last game announced for this show was from Arcane Studios. So, one of Bethesda's studios. It is called Redfall. It is a multiplayer vampire game. And by that I mean you are killing vampires. It was purely a cinematic. It's coming out summer of 2022. It's hard to make too many judgments because it was just cinematic. It gave like hints of what the gameplay is going to be like, but for now we'll just kind of have to speculate. I think between Starfield and this, Microsoft is very much making it apparent their acquisition of Bethesda was for the sake of exclusives. There was a lot of speculation that, oh, well, they'll still make money if they sell it on PlayStation. Maybe they'll keep it on other platforms. Nope. The two biggest Bethesda games coming out within the next year and a half are going to be only on Xbox and PC. So I think the game looked pretty nice. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was. I don't know if like the proof of concept was strong enough for me. Like I saw like the characters were fun and they had nice designs and like okay, we're fighting vampires and it's multiplayer co-op, but like what is like like is it going to be I don't know. I just wish I don't know. Sometimes with games like this I'm like just like show me gameplay, show me like before you do a cinematic, because sometimes a cinematic just doesn't like capture me. You know what I mean?
I
I
am with you for sure.
I did think it looked fun, and well, like I said, I really like the characters and the design, so it's definitely something to like keep an eye on. I just kind of feel like I don't know. Sometimes they just like get really excited. I don't know why this. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly critical, but I felt like this was kind of a weird thing to be like one more thing,
Oh no, I'm
because
with you on that. When they
they
said one
always
more
have
thing,
the
I had much different expectations.
right, and they snuck in at the end. We're like, oh, we're totally working on the next Elder Scrolls game, and we're we're totally doing all that, but we're not gonna. I mean,
It doesn't count if you just
yeah.
say it.
Right. It's like, what does that even mean? You guys are in pre-production. I don't know, but
It did not. It didn't feel like a one more thing to me.
no, not
It's
at all.
the last 20 minutes of this show. Like we've been selling it really highly because it was a good show. And they opened super strong with Starfield and a bunch of other games that they rushed through. Not rushed like not enough time, just not overstaying any welcomes. And then the last 20 minutes they were like, okay, now we're going to hit the brakes at accidental pun. We're going to hit the brakes and talk about the striving game for 15 minutes. And then we're like, okay. And then they're like, okay, now we're done. And I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, but we have one more thing. And it was a cinematic for a new IP, which Arcane is pretty, they have a good track record. I personally don't think new IPs should be announced with cinematics. I think the whole point of a new IP is it's unproven and I want to know how it's going to play,
Yes.
So.
But we have one more thing to tell you.
Did we say that was the last thing? We lied. Because there was one more thing, more exciting than every announcement in the show combined.
One more thing we want to tell you about.
And this happened after they closed the show. That's the best part. It was over, and then they did this.
They said, hey, gamers, do you want a mini fridge for all your Monster Energy drinks and chicken tendies? Well, guess what? We have a mini fridge based on your favorite gaming console, the Series X. And it's coming out this year. Mic drop. Boom. We'll see you guys next year. Yeah, thanks.
It sounds like you're making an elaborate joke, but that's literally how they ended Nintendo. That's how they ended Microsoft E3 2021. Not a video game, a fridge. I understand being in tune with meme culture, like, haha, we hear you, kiddos. But what a strange way to close it out.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. It was a very, very good show, but what a goofy ending.
I know, like, really, guys? The fridge. Thanks. Thanks for the fridge.
Final thought. Do you have any thoughts on the show overall, since that was the last announcement?
I thought it was a good show. I feel like the energy was really high right up until the end, kind of like we were saying. I kind of wish sometimes that we didn't hear about games that weren't like even ready to show.
Yeah.
And I feel like it got kind of weird towards the end. Like, why did we spend 20 minutes talking about Forza? Why was the one more thing a new IP? Just sort of the complaints that we've had. But I think overall it's very, the future is looking very good for Microsoft and Bethesda by that extension. And I'm excited for Starfield, and I'm excited to see how the year progresses for them and next year, leading into next year.
This isn't scripted, but what's your number one favorite thing that was shown off in this show?
I'm actually really, this might be a little bit strange, but I'm actually really excited about that pixel art game Replaced. I thought it was
completely
really
fair.
Beautiful to look at. I'm excited about Outer Worlds 2 because I really like that game, the first game. And I want to say I'm excited for Starfield, but I just can't feel that way yet.
Yeah.
I just can't. What about you?
I think my favorite looking game was Somerville, the Playdead game. Not by Playdead, but Somerville, the game by Playdead devs.
Hmm.
Um, and then, honestly, Atomic Heart, that surrealist first person game. I know very little, but that trailer really did sell me. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I'm kind of with you. Replaced looked pretty stunning. So it's funny that, like, in this AAA conference, both of our favorite games, except for Starfield, were like smaller projects, you know? Like they really
Hmm.
just those smaller projects really shined through in this one. Good on Microsoft for giving them as much time as they did.
I agree.
So, well, that's been part 1 of our E3 special. We got another part coming to you. We got to cover Ubisoft conference. We got to cover Devolver Digital, Square Enix, and then of course, I would say potentially the biggest show of the conference, Nintendo. I hope you're excited. Are you excited, Kelly?
I'm excited. Are you excited, Andrew?
I'm shaking in my boots.
Oh my God. Not the boots.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will see you again very soon for our second part of our E3 special. Thanks for tuning in.
Woo!